Okay. Hello everyone. So we're back for another evaluation for my FMP project. So let's get straight to it. So this week, we're coming to the end of the project soon. So I haven't really got as much work to be getting on with as this week as I have in other weeks. But for this week, I think I remember saying last week that I set myself new tasks to do on my Trello board. So this week, my plan was just to go through those tasks and complete those tasks. Um, but the which I will talk about soon. But first off, I want to talk about this section here. So this is a new section that I've added or started working on in my practical skills page because I asked Rob if he was able to see the videos that I've made that I've added to this part of the site, and he said that there was only one video that he wasn't able to see, which I fixed that now. I've added it to my the FMP Google Drive folder, so he should be able to see it now, that video now. But something else he said that a suggestion he made was that he wanted to see me go into the color theory and symbiotics of my the why I've chosen the colors I have for my office. Yes, and this is what I'm explaining in this section. But as far as and so this is what I'm trying to explain here. And I've done the same thing I did in my research section. Is I took the final screenshots I've made and used the color picker to pick out the kind of colors that I've chosen. To kind of make a color palette for the colors I've used. And my main goal for the color theme of this environment is that I wanted it to very much have it a very much look very human, look very man-made, very, shall we say, industrial. And I wanted to have I wanted it to have a similar color scheme to like a a navy ship, like a real navy ship that you'd see today. Hey, but having looking into, I was very surprised to see that there was a lot more that real navy ships, are a lot more colorful. They have a lot more bright colors in their design, more than I was expecting. But anyway, my plan for that was my plan. That was my idea for this environment, and was because I wanted it to very much look like a very what's this word official place. I didn't want it to look, and I wanted it to fit into the military theme that I wanted. It was the military theme that I was going for. So that's another reason why I didn't use a lot of bright colors for the scene, for the environment. So my basic plan for how I was gonna use the colors was I wanted to use very um, dark colors for most of the room. Kind of to give it that kind of industrial, man-made, artificial, shall we say, artificial look to it. I wanted it to, how do I can't quite think of an example at the moment. But I also wanted, of course, I didn't want it all to be dark and grey, and so that's why I've added a lot of other brighter colors, because my plan was adding a lot, having the environment be a lot of dark colors. It should make the lighter colors kind of stand out a bit more. And looking at the final renders of the mod of the environment, I think I've managed to achieve that, and I'm very happy with the way the colors and the textures look. Because when I did start texturing, I was very concerned about how all the textures would look when it was all finally finished, because I was afraid that they weren't going to stick together. They weren't going to be complementary to each other. But once I finished texturing and coloring the environment, I was very pleasantly surprised to see how well, and I was kind of shocked myself to see how well it all worked, and how well my plan for my color scheme worked out. And but so basically, I just used the same color scheme or the same plan as I used in my sketch, because I like the way it looked in my I like the way I like the colors that I used in the sketch. And so I didn't really have a very, shall we say, in-depth plan and about what specifically what each color meant and what each color represented it. But I knew that my main goal for this environment was that I wanted it to look very official. I wanted it to look very human and man-made, because I've mentioned this before sometimes in a lot of other um, sci-fi projects or sci-fi. It's like, I think maybe Star Trek might be a good example. It's like sometimes it's like, especially like in the modern movies that they've done, and the colors, or the colors that they chose to use for like the ship, for the interior of the ship, with this kind of very bright glowing kind of white, and almost kind of a blinding white. I didn't want it. I didn't want my environment to look like that. I wanted it to look like a very, as I said, a very official place, a place that, a very serious place where serious business takes place, shall we say. Um, so, and the reason usually when I make these color palettes, I try and pick as many colors as I can. But the reason I wasn't able to finish these add as many color palettes, or as many colors, um, to these two as I did the first one, was because I felt like a lot of the colors that I chose here would be, of course, be the same here, and so I just be repeating myself. And plus the colors that I was using, or the colors that I was kind of picking out from these environments, were very close to each other. So close, I don't think lots of people would be able to tell the difference between them. So I just felt like it would make more sense to just kind of pick the colors that obviously people would see the most, or that would stand out the most obvious change from the first screenshot here. So that was my very basic thinking as far as the color scheme goes for my environment. Now I've done this so far, and I'm not sure if Rob wants me to go into a bit more detail else, and kind of because he also wanted to talk about kind of the atmosphere that I wanted for the environment, and so I think I might do a bit more on this because I think Rob will be expecting a bit more from this section of my site. And the reason I've chosen to put it down at the bottom was because I didn't feel like it would make very much sense to put it up where I was doing the texturing section, because in the texturing section, of course, I'm still making the model. So a lot of the things in the final rendering wouldn't kind of make sense because of course I haven't done it yet, and so I thought the most fitting place to put it would be at the bottom where I'm responding to the feedback that I've gotten from my class and now from Rob. So I think I'm gonna do a bit. I'm gonna do a bit more work on this, as in, and I kind of brought up the subject of warm and cold colors because for most of the environment I've used very cold colors like dark gray and dark blacks and dark blue and things like that. So because I in my view anyway, the environment or the colors that I've used for this environment look very dark, so I put them under the cold section, whereas the colors like the colors for the flag, the colors for the bright colors for the flag, for the logos, for the wood in the back, for the map, those would be very warm colors because they're bright and they stand out. Um, so I think my plan is to add a bit more to this section, and although I'm a bit not nervous, but I'm kind of thinking about what else I could add to the section. So, but I think what I will do is I'll go into a bit more detail and talk about the kind of atmosphere I wanted for model, for my model, that kind of atmosphere I planned. Um, and maybe kind of talk about my choice of materials that I've used. Maybe that would be a good idea as well, and kind of explain my thinking behind them. And so, I'm still planning to add a little bit more to this section, but this is what I've got so far. Okay, so moving on from this section. Before moving on, I just want to so in these in this the hallway, the screenshot that I got, I kind of explained how the reason the sudden shift, I've kind of given a reason for the sudden shift in the color tone or the color palette from the rest of the room, because I for narrative, I explained that I did this for narrative reasons, and saying I thought it would be a good idea to have different colors for different deck to notify what different decks of the ship that you're on. And I decided that the green would be good for like the command deck to show that this is the captain's, where you can find the captain on this deck and where you can find his office. That was the biggest kind of change that I made to the color scheme of my environment, and that's the reason why I've made that change. As well, or maybe I could go into detail, kind of talking about how I've kind of kept the color for the fire extinguisher the same. same as today. But also I made the emergency phone, shall we? The yellow emergency phone. I made it yellow so it'd be easier to see in an emergency. So maybe I could talk about that. Kind of go into kind of my thinking behind it, the kind of plans I had for the how it would work in for the how we say narrative of the environment. So maybe I could talk about that. Maybe that would be something I could talk about. Um, moving on. Um, and so, oh, one of so, yeah, so recently, I asked. I'll wait for everything to load first. Recently, Rob asked us to take a look. To take a look at our checklist. It's our FMP checklist. And to tick off the things that we've completed and the topics we finished, and to note which topics we haven't done yet, so that we can start. Obviously, we can start ticking them off, so we can start making a plan for which topics which tasks we want to finish off first, or which task would be the easiest, and which one would be which task you want to tackle first. So and but for me, I've completed. As you can see, I've completed most of the checklist, the FMP checklist. But the two topics that I wasn't sure about and I haven't filled in yet was the narrative and sound, because I wasn't sure if those topics would be relevant for my project, relevant for what I'm doing. And so I decided to finally ask Rob and let me get all the way down here. Ask Rob, and he told me which ones which one which would be the most relevant for my project, and he said that the sound would not be relevant for my project, so there's no point. It wouldn't be point in doing it. But he said that narrative, it might I might not be making like a game. I might not be making a game with like a full story, a full story with characters and enemies and plots and everything, but I could still tell a story with my environment, which I thought was a interesting topic to research into. And so he suggested that I could research into how game designers, how game developers use the environment to tell a story. And so that was the next section that I looked at. The next section I researched into. Oh, sorry about that. So, starting off, I wanted to look into what methods you could use to. I wanted to find an example of how someone could use the environment, or what method someone could use to tell a story in an environment. So I looked on ArtStation to try and find an environment that kind of told a story. And I'm very happy that I found this one, because I think this is a very good example. So I found this example of a classroom environment. And but if you obviously if you there's another screenshot underneath, and you can see all the what's the extra work, I suppose, that kind of goes into telling a story, and how different these two look. How it's interesting to see how different these two screenshots are, because of course they're the same environment, the same classroom, but they both of them tell very different stories and very different have a very different story to tell, as in, and that's mainly to do with the set dressing. And so set dressing is like when you add like clues to an environment to kind of tell someone or tell the audience, and they'll give a clue to the audience about what's happened in this environment. And so again, it's like in the first environment, you could just kind of say that, oh, maybe school's out today, or you could say that the school is being renovated or something, and it looks very innocent. Whereas if you look at the second image, obviously there's a huge difference, and it's a bit more serious, it's a bit more dark, it's a bit more sinister. As you can see, there's blood on the wall here. It's obviously it's an older building, something time has passed, and it's a lot more, shall we say, chaotic and a dark image. It's very interesting. So this environment is an excellent example of how set dressing how dressing an environment in a certain way can completely change it and completely give it a different story, a different background, if you will. And so that's why I've chosen this environment as an example, because I think it's very telling and very good at kind of demonstrating my point, of how a story can be told using using just the environment, or just using clues in the environment. And so that was my first example. Then I tried thinking about games that kind of did a good job of doing this, or games. I tried thinking about the best game that kind of used its environment to tell a story. And my first thinking was like examples like could be examples like Dead Space. I've never played Dead Space, but I know that it kind of takes place in this kind of very dark, very scary space station, and the player has to find out what's going on, and like the characters in the story kind of leave behind clues as to what's happened. But the best example I could think of would be in BioShock, because again, and I've not played a lot of BioShock. Well, not the first one anyway. But I remember playing the BioShock Infinite, and it did a very good job, or from what I remember anyway. But I remember that this game, the biggest praise that this game got was how the environment told the story for the player, and the player was able to slowly piece together what happened, and slowly piece together why the city is like this, and why it's not, and what happened to lead it to this state. And because I remember I didn't play it for long, but I played a little bit of the first Bioshock. But the I know that the overall the biggest thing that stood out to me, and the biggest thing that kind of, what's the word, creeped me out or gave me a certain feeling, was the environment. It was the kind of dark tone and the scary um scary e- feeling that came out from the environment, and it really did a good job of putting you on edge, and did a good job of making the player tense in those situations. And so I found a site talking about it, and talking about how what a good job it does of telling the what a good job the environment does of telling a story, of using the environment as almost giving the environment almost as much character as any of the other characters in the game. And so I thought this was a Bioshock was a good example of how environments could be used to tell stories, and to provide a narrative for the player, to engage the player. That's a good word, because when you're walking around the city, when you're walking around the scary underground city or underwater city, of Rapture, it really does a good job of engaging the player and making the player interested and wanting to know how this happened and why this is happening and who this other person is, and basically a good job of getting the player interested in the story that they're trying to tell. So I think Bioshock is a good example of that. Right. But the last thing I wanted to talk about for this section was how not only can environments be used to tell stories, but objects can be used to tell stories as well. As in, I was talking to Rob, and he was talking about how he talked about how when you're making a model, or maybe when the professionals are making a model, how you don't want to make the model look too good. You don't want to make it look too perfect, as in with no scratches, no bumps, no nothing, because that seems very fake, because nothing in real life looks super perfect and without any scratches or damage. It's so adding a small amount of imperfection into a model, it really helps give it a bit of realism. And I thought that was an interesting topic, an interesting thing to bring up. So I went on ArtStation again and tried looking for props, looking for objects that kind of were a bit kind of scratched and a bit damaged, that showed it kind of told a little bit more of a story, shall we say. And so I found these props and it kind of talking about how adding a little bit more little bit of damage to an object, or a little bit of kind of give it a bit of a story, a bit of mystery, if you will, and how it can help to overall make the model look better and make it look more realistic. And so that was an interesting topic. And so that was something I kind of looked into a bit more. And I kind of showed off here, this image kind of showed off how even with like big AAA developments and big AAA productions, that they do still do the same thing. If you look at like with the gun, you can see that there's like small bits where the paint is kind of wasted away, and how some of the paint's gotten into the handle, and how there are some like scratches and scratches on it, and so it all kind of goes into kind of making the model look more believable, and making the so. Oh, that was an interesting topic to look into. So then I kind of started looking into. So then I kind of started looking into how I've told a narrative, or my plan for telling a narrative in my model. Now, adding a bit of wear and tear into my models would be something interesting. That would be something I'd be willing to try and willing to do. But I think for this project, I just, as I've mentioned before, I just wanted to make sure I got it finished on time. So my main goal was making it, obviously finishing it and adding all the necessary textures on top. But that would make adding a bit of rust and adding a bit of damage to some of maybe to my models would be something I'd be interested in to do, or interested in seeing. But I'm at the moment I'm not quite sure how I would do it, because I don't know how I would be able to achieve that look. So, and I think it would require a bit more time to kind of find out how to do something like that. So for now, I'm happy just to keep the textures and my models the same. But maybe that is something I could look into for my next project, or maybe adding a bit of wear and tear to my models would be something I could look. It would be something interesting to look into. But for the most part, I added story by adding certain items and certain elements into the model, into the environment, that kind of told a bit of a story to the viewer. So the first data and this so the first this image just shows off all of the narrative models, if you will, or the models that I added in for narrative reasons. So that would be like the captain certificate, kind of who the certificate making him a captain, and how he the training he had to do to achieve that position. The radar image showing showing the outside of the ship, showing what's near the ship. I thought it's very important to show, or show the world outside of the ship, to show that yes, the world has moved on, that we are in the future, we have advanced a long way, and showing how we have lots of other, not the that basically it's not just the ship and Earth and the moon in space, that we have lots of other things and lots of other stations in space, and colonies like on the moon and things like that. I thought it was a very important thing that I wanted to show for my model, and I'm very happy that I did choose to do it, because I feel like it does, well, for me at least, it does make a difference, and it's in telling a story. And then I added the first aid kit, because I thought that would be a very appropriate thing to have on a ship. They have the same thing on real ships, so I thought make sense to add the same thing to my ship. And the last thing, of course, and probably the most notable, would be the two logos that I've made. The first logo being the logo of the ship, with the name of the navy that it's a part of, and then of course the logo of the no, sorry. So the first logo is the logo of the ship, the name of the ship. Yep. Whereas this logo is for the navy that they're a part of. And now I think about it, it probably would have been a better idea had I put the name of the navy on this logo instead of this one. But yeah, I know it's not a big deal. Oh, not something. I don't think it's gonna change. It doesn't really affect the model so much. Again, I'm happy to keep it this way, but it's just something to keep in mind for the future, I guess. Um, but yeah, so these were the two aspects of narrative that I added into my model. Oh, and I was very happy to kind of make my own navy because it was a lot more fun to do that, and I'm glad I did change my idea. Glad I did. Glad Thomas did kind of tell me to change the name of the navy because it was a lot. It was just it's a lot more. It gives you a lot more freedom basically instead of obviously relying on or using the real navy, which I feel like it could have led to a lot of legal problems, which was the main reason why I changed it. But just doing a oops. Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm happy that I made that decision, and I think it was the right decision to make. But I think maybe one more bit of narrative item I could have included was the green shapes that I had in the hallway, because as I said, that was supposed to be like the command deck, like of the ship. So maybe I could add those items here as well, because it's all to tell a story. Yeah. So maybe I'll do that later. Um. So the last bit I want to talk about, or the last thing I want to say about the narrative, or the using the environment to tell a story, was that I found this subject to be very interesting, and I think and I'm really happy that I looked into this subject, because I feel like it will be a very useful tool to know about, or to learn about, or to know about for future projects, especially future environment projects. Like, so and I think this example that I found does a really good job of showing how important, shall we say, how important and or how integral using the what a tool, maybe that's a better word, of how beneficial it can be to use the environment to tell a story as well, because just you doing this alone tell or engages the players so much, like, and gets them to so intrigued, and gets them interested, and they were wanting to know what's happened. And is this what's happened? Is it just because the school has been abandoned for a long time? Or has something happened? Is it like the apocalypse? As you can see with like maybe that's a kind of more closer guess, considering the blood on the wall, and all these different, and so there are all these different, how we say, possibilities uh for what an environment is capable of. So it'd be very interesting to like maybe like because you got this, as you can see, you've got this this kind of a normal kind of peaceful environment, shall we say, at the top, but it'd be very interesting to see this environment we've already seen. Oh, I said we've already seen it in another state, but it's very sort of interesting and intriguing to know that, and it kind of gets me thinking anyway. How many more settings could you have in this environment? How much more could you change this environment? And kind of the idea of how many stories that how many stories you could tell by just using the environment alone. So yeah, this was a very interesting topic to look into and to research into and to find out about just how beneficial, and I think it would looking into this and researching into this would be very beneficial for my next environmental project. Um, so the next part is me talking about. So last week I mentioned how I've I've made a new. I've added new tasks to my Trello board, and how I want by adding these new tasks to my Trello board, it kind of gives me a second chance to try and stay on top of it and stay on board and not to forget about it. Because the biggest thing now is that I haven't got the huge pressure to kind of get the model done, the environment model done. Because now I've got it finished, I can kind of relax a bit more. So it kind of makes it a bit easier to stay on top of the Trello board. But I know that's something I need to. That's not something I should get used to. Or that I should I should kind of get used to having, still being in that pressure, still having that project to finish, and still checking on it. Because it's gonna be very rare, shall we say, till we have this situation, the situation of I can relax and kind of tick off my tasks one by one. Well, most of the time it will be kind of having to get the project done under pressure. And so even though this is still like a second chance to kind of keep on track with my Trello board, it's still maybe not something I should get used to, I suppose. So I'm coming down here. Okay, so I finished talking about where I got the inspiration from, because that was something I said I was going to finish writing about last week. So I've finished that now. So here it is. So this section is me ticking off the things that I said I was going to do last week. So the first task was adding all the texture files and all the images that I used over to my Google Drive. I've done that now. That's finished. I did that last week. The next thing I said I was gonna do was that I was gonna change the source of my evaluation videos, and from YouTube to Google, add them to the Google Drive, so that Rob wouldn't have to go over to YouTube to watch my videos, and he would just be able to see it from the drive. I tried doing that. At first, I tried adding all the videos that I had, onto the drive at once. But that was just gonna take way too long to finish and complete. So then I tried adding, I was gonna try adding one at a time, and I tried it at first, and it had an hour, and I said it was going to be an hour, so I got on with other things and came back an hour later and found out that it didn't work, and the file didn't load properly. And I think the main reason for this is probably because the video itself is too long. Because that was another problem I think I have, is I talk for way too long, and I kind of go overboard in these evaluation videos. So I want to try and talk a bit faster and try and get to my points a bit quicker, so that they're not all so long. And so but I can but I so I've kind of abandoned that plan now. Oh, and I'm just kind of going to continue adding my evaluation videos to YouTube. The main point about the video, obviously, the evaluation videos, is that Rob is able to see them and he's able to watch them and able to grade them. And it doesn't really matter from where he does that, as long as he has access to it, as long as he can do it. So that's what I've decided. So that I'm just going to so I've kind of cancelled that plan now. The next thing I wanted to do was, you probably noticed, is I wanted to change the radar image that I had for the and the main reason I wanted to change it was because, and it was a kind of a small reason, but I felt it was an important reason. I was like, oh great, no, oh wait, there we go, here. It was kind of a small reason, but I still felt like it was important. Is that with the old image, I can see if I can remember what the old image Earth was. Where was? There it is. Yeah, so Earth was over here in the last image that I made. The last image I made for the the main reason I wanted to change it was because in my last image, Earth was over here on the other side of the ship, whereas of now I've added the Earth background. You can clearly see that Earth is outside. It's on the wrong side. And so that's why I wanted to make a new image to kind of make it a bit more accurate, make the radar a bit more accurate. But also I kind of took it as a chance to kind of redesign the image. It's because I didn't really like the kind of, I wanted to see, now that I've figured out how to add the glowing effect to the image, I wanted to see what other colors would look like in that, with that effect. Like, so that was the reason why I changed I changed the colors of the image as well. And plus I didn't really like the way that the circle, with how the circle deformed, and it was kind of a very, it didn't really look very good. But the another reason, and I said the main reason, the other main reason that I had for changing the image was because I didn't, as I said, I didn't like the way that the image was deformed, and I guess that the reason the image was deformed was because the shape of the image wasn't right. So for the original image, I used a square, and so when I tried fitting this image into the shape of the monitor, it didn't work, or it didn't work as well as I was hoping. It was a lot more difficult. The mistake that I made, I didn't take into account the shape of the monitor, the kind of the unique shape of the monitor. So what I did for this image, as you can see, I kind of made it a bit. I made it so it resembled the monitor a lot more, so that it would fit better, and it worked perfectly. It worked like exactly the way I was hoping. As in when I tried UV mapping this new image onto onto the monitor, it worked a lot better, and it was a lot easier, and the image didn't deform as much. So so I'm glad that I took the time and fixed that minor issue and fixed that minor bug. Because I think it looks a lot better. The image looks a lot better now. Oh, and it's a lot more accurate as well. That was the other small thing that was bugging me about the image. So going back to the site, as I said, I've also finished talking about where I got the inspiration from to add the Welsh theme to my environment. But as I said before, Rob wanted us to make a checklist and look through our checklist and to cross out the tasks that we've completed and the tasks we've done. So now that, speaking of which, I can get rid of that. Also, I can turn that green now. So he wanted us to look through our checklist and check off all the tasks we've completed, but he wanted us to, but he also wanted us to come up with a plan for how we were going to tackle the last tasks that we had for our projects. Like, and so this is another calendar showing the time we have left with the project. Like now, originally, I thought we had until the 20th of May, but we found out we have until the 12th of May. So it's quite a big difference. And for me, this is my plan for the time we have left for the project. Like so, my plan at the moment, as I said before, is, well, I'm gonna add a bit here as well. I added a little bit more to the color theory of my environment and why I've chosen the colors I have and what kind of atmosphere I wanted for my model. Oh, I'm gonna kind of add a little bit more to that, but I've kind of already kind of completed a lot of the. Oh yeah, that reminds me. So for these final weeks, or the final weeks of the project, like I've already done the research into narrative. I'm doing the evaluation video now, and I have written up. I've already written up about what I got some feedback from Lewis. Lewis came in this week, so I was able to ask him for his opinion on my. I was able to ask him his opinion on my project, and I got some really good feedback back, which I'll get to in a minute. We're off on Monday, and then on Tuesday, I want to add my model to my ArtStation account. So I want to add my final the final rendered screenshots that I've taken to my portfolio, to my online portfolio, because I think this will be a huge boon to my portfolio I think it's so much, so much more, so much. It's so different from all the other models that I've done. So all the models that I've posted here, as in you can see, most of them are just like one item, one object. And where the closest, the biggest thing I've done so far was the gaming desk that I've done, that I did last week. I did it. Oh, not last week. I did last year in my own time. I'm so I think it would be a huge. I think it would be a huge benefit to my portfolio to add it here, and to obviously to keep it here. But back to my site. So I'm gonna do that on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday I'm going to write about adding it onto my the presentation section of my site. And then on Thursday, that will be when I do next Thursday will be when I do my final evaluation. And in that evaluation, I'm going to talk about absolutely everything to do with the project. Like, I'm going to talk about everything, all the pages on my site, and go through them one by one, and go through how I think I've done, maybe what I could have done better, the things that things I'm proud of, things that I'm the things that I've learned, the new things that I've learned during this project. So that's what I'm gonna be doing next week, going through the whole of my site. Right. I think what I'm planning to do so far is I'm going to use these questions. I'm going to answer these questions next week and go through all of them and give my answers to all of them and give my opinions for all of them. And so I think, well, I hope that will be enough for the final evaluation of my site, and to finally close it all up, I guess, as now that the project is almost finished. I've done this as well. So yeah, so that's my plan next week. Or I could come up with my own questions, but I think it would be best to use the questions Rob has given me. Yeah. So that's what I'm planning to do next week. Next week I'll go through these questions and answer them and give my opinions on or how I think I've done, and talk about how I think I've done on all of the aspects of my website, right, and what I think I could improve on, and what I think I could gain from completing this project. So let's save that for next week. As well, and this is he wanted us to evaluate the progress that we've made on our written work. And kind of, as I said, tick off the things we've finished, and tick off and make a plan for the tasks that we still have left to do. And this was the list that I had at the start of the week, and now, as you can see, I've almost finished through this list. So that kind of reminds me I should really do add another section here as an update to show how I've completed these sections and I've completed these tasks. The final thing I want to talk about would be the feedback I got from Lewis yesterday. So, well, as I said, Lewis was one of the people that I wanted, or one of the uh, well, one of the people in particular that I wanted to have his opinion on my site, on my project, because he's given me really good feedback before in the past. He's given me really um, good advice and good, what's the word, knowledge in the past, like how when I was doing the ruby necklace, and I showed him and I asked him what he thought about it, he mentioned about how he talked about how different the how what was it? He talked about how natural rubies, or rubies that haven't been cut, worth more and are more expensive and more sought after. And so I thought, so that gave me an idea to kind of, well, the plan was anyway, the idea that he gave me was to make the ruby necklace even more expensive, or even worth even more points in the game. And because he told me that the uncut gems are worth more. So those were those that's the kind of feedback that I was hoping for with this project, and he didn't disappoint, and I was very happy with the feedback that I got. As in, he said that the model that I've made looked very professional and looked very well textured, and he was one of the few people to talk about or even notice the Welsh theme or the Welsh heritage that I was trying to add to the environment, and so I was happy about that. He liked the lights that the lights that I'd added, the color of the lights that I've added to the environment. But he did have point of constructive criticism, was that he felt like if the model was done by a AAA developer, that they would have added other details like wires and switches and boards and all the and things like that. And I've written a bit here, and I've kind of made it. I wanted to make it clear that the reason I didn't really want to add wires on the floor, I didn't really want to add a lot of, shall we say, a lot of confusion, because I wanted it to be a clean. I wanted it to have a clean sci-fi aesthetic. So that was something I wanted to make clear, was that I didn't want to have I didn't want the environment to look messy, or to look shall we unorganized. Again, this is supposed to be a very strict and serious military environment, so I didn't really think it would look good to have wires all over the floor. But as well, again, as I said, it didn't really. I didn't think it fit with the kind of clean and the kind of clean. What's the word I'm looking for? Clear and clean sci-fi theme that I wanted. I was going for. Although, even though I talked about, I didn't really, I didn't want to add those kind of things to my environment, and I still thought that Lewis kind of raised a good point, or raised an interesting point, in that maybe not with wires, but I would have liked to add a bit more, shall we say, what's the word I'm looking for? A technical side to my model, as in I would have liked to add, like, maybe add a kind, maybe there's a bit of like add that's the word I'm looking for, like a circuit board or something, or something to kind of show that there's kind of machinery, or the inner workings of the ship, or something like that. I would have liked to kind of, now that I think about it, that now Lewis has kind of brought it up, I would have liked to kind of add some form of that in the environment, and so that it kind of what's the word so that it doesn't just kind of look like the walls don't just or the environment doesn't just look like any kind of room you could have on some in any kind of building anywhere, to kind of show that yes, this is a machine, that yes, this is a ship, fly, and this is a machine being used and everything. So that would have been something. So that would have been something I would have liked to add. But then again, I wouldn't quite know how to add it, and different kind of ways I could show it. It. Um, and plus, even if I wanted to do it, it oh I wouldn't know exactly how to do it, with the kind of the current, shall we say, my current skill level, in Blender. So maybe that's something I could think about, something I can work on for my next model. Or was the kind of, because sometimes I do kind of think that my models kind of look very, shall we say, very simple, if you will. That I could add, that it would be cool, it would be nice to kind of add a bit more detail, if you will, add a bit more detail to them. Maybe add the kind of the kind of a clue to some kind of inner workings or inner mechanisms being used or being shown off in the environment, or being shown off in the model itself. Oh, so that was that was an interesting point that Lewis brought up. But I'm really happy. I'm really happy that I got Lewis's feedback, and he was able to give his opinion on my project. I was very grateful for his participation. Um, but that was the last thing I wanted to talk about. But for this week, okay, as I said, for this week, my main plan, my main goal, is to, as I said, add a little bit more to the color theory, and why I explain a little bit more about why I use certain colors and why I use certain materials in my environment. Um, next, next would probably, and then the next thing to do, or the next big thing to do, would be to add the final rendered shots of my model, to my ArtStation account. Then of course write about it. And then of course evaluate everything, every aspect of the project in my final evaluation. So that's what I've got planned for this week and next week. So yeah, and to talk about how I'm very happy with how the project is progressing, and I'm very proud of myself. The fact that because I sometimes I look over the work that I've done. I look over um, the the model that I've the environment, or kind of this would probably be a better example. I look over the model that I've made, and I'm still kind of shocked and kind of blown away, the fact that I did this, the fact that I made this, the fact that I not only was I able to come up with an idea for a project, but I was able to carry it out fully. Yeah, and I'm just really happy, really proud of myself that I've achieved this. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that I feel like I could have improved on in this project that I've kind of learned more about, I guess would be a way to put it. As in, I've mentioned this before, and again I'll mention and I'll go into further detail in the final evaluation, but I feel like it would have been more, what's the word, more appropriate, if you will, if I had used another or learned a new skill for this project, learned a new a new way of modeling or a new way of texturing, and because there's a lot of the skills that I've learned I kind of picked up I've used before, and I just think that maybe it would have been better if I used more if I learnt more skills during this project, learnt more blender skills or modeling skills during this project. But so that those are the first kind of things that I kind of have to say about my project, like so far. But as I said, I'm really happy with the final results of my model. Whoops. As well as that, I'm really um, proud of the work that I've done, the written work that I've done, and because I feel like I've done a lot and I've got into a lot of detail with a lot of different sections of the site. It's really, and going into such detail has really improved the model. Yeah, I think it has. Um, so that's it. So this week I will uh, try add a little bit more to the color scheme and why I've used the color scheme I've chosen, and the the meat on the materials that I've chosen, and then I will add the final rendered shots onto my ArtStation account, and and then of course the final the valuation I will go into great detail, go into um, more detail, kind of talking about every part of the project. But I think that's it for now. Oh, thank you. I've talked about everything I planned to. Um, thank you.